Pixel Sift is proudly supported by Murdoch University School of Arts. Creative industries are changing all the time. At Murdoch University School of Arts, you can study a degree that'll keep up with the fast pace of modern media. Designed in consultation with industry and business, the new Bachelor of Creative Media allows you to specialise in sound, graphic design, screen production, photography, or games art and design. In addition to Pixel Sift, this week, Murdoch University School of Arts is once again sponsoring Perth's Game Fest. So if you would like to see what the Perth game development community has to offer, come down to Perth Town Hall this Saturday, the 25th of November, and check out some Murdoch student creations such as Long Live the King, Singularity, and many more. Search Murdoch University and head to the website for more information. Murdoch University School of Arts proudly supporting Perth Games Fest and Pixel Sift. That's it, is Pixel Sift. Hello, my name is Scott and welcome to Pixel Sift. For those of you joining us for the first time, we're a show that gives you a glimpse into the Australian video game culture and development community. Helping me out today, as always, are my co-hosts Sarah and Nick.
Hello.
Hello.
Co-hosts, that was, coasts.
That works. I like that, coasts. It's got a nice rhythm.
Yes, and our special guest today is Dylan Walker from ONERAT Games. Thanks for joining us today, Dylan.
Thanks for having me.
Not at all. Dylan's here to talk to us about ONERAT's latest title, Elden. But before that, what else are we covering, Sarah?
Well, with the release of Star Wars Battlefront II, EA has somehow managed to piss off the entire internet. The whole of it. Or at least most of Reddit, or almost all of Reddit, based on just how many downvotes that one comment got. So for the last 2 weeks, it's all anyone's been able to talk about, so now it's our turn.
Excellent. Let's get started.
You're listening to Pixel Sift. Or you might be watching Pixel Sift on Twitch. Pixel Sift.
So Star Wars Battlefront 2 has been out for about a fortnight now, but it didn't take nearly that long for the game to be returned, burned, thrown into the comments section, and downvoted into oblivion. The response was so overtly negative that EA's share prices dropped a whole 10%, which is pretty damn significant. Now, the offending microtransactions that caused most of the kerfuffle around this have been temporarily, that's the key word, disabled, but has the damage already been done?
Well, yes, in a lot of ways it has. So it's funny you mentioned the temporary bit as well. I'm sure we'll get back to that. But yeah, it's temporary with no foreseeable end to it. I'm sure there will be. It seems like Disney have kind of got up in roar about this as well, because obviously the new Star Wars is coming out in a few weeks, and they were upset at the dissatisfaction amongst players and fans, and it reflected poorly on their marquee property, apparently.
Definitely. Like one of the first statements that I saw released post the whole controversy was someone saying that especially Star Wars, everything was about the fans first, and so they were doing everything that they could to kind of correct the problems that had so clearly arisen. Initially,
I mean, it's huge.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I was reading an article today. It was by a person from Forbes, and they said they were a father in this article, and they were talking about how they're a family father, and Star Wars has always been a family IP. You know, I was watching it as quite a young kid with my family. You know, it's had games that are marketed at small children. At there was a couple of M-rated games back in the day on the GameCube and such. It's been all kind of, it's tried to cover the widest range while still being at the core of itself a family and fun space IP, and that's fantastic. And this has definitely put a bit of a dent in that, especially because this is, gambling and children. The game is only rated M. It's not like it's locked to 18 plus people. It's available to a wide range of audiences there, and that's pretty sketchy if you ask me.
We've been taking that. There's a lot of uproar about the whole gambling side of microtransactions and loot boxes, and I think that just this week, I should have done a little bit more look into this, but somebody in Victoria, somebody decided that yes, it was gambling. I think it was something to do with the gambling authority.
Well, I don't know too much about it, but there are set rules and guidelines around what is and what is not gambling. I think you need to check me up on that, but surely there's got to be. I mean, boards do check in on this. We have pretty strict gambling laws in Australia. I know that as much. With issues with this kind of thing, and it does. I mean, at its core, when you look at this kind of a model and you go, children are doing this, or people that are not over 18 are doing this with their own bank accounts and their own money, their own PayPal accounts, potentially their parents. It's like, that seems pretty inappropriate, especially if the kid gets a hold of his parents' credit card for whatever reason, his or her. It's like, what's going to happen there?
And that
bad
does happen.
possibilities.
That's the
Yeah,
thing.
exactly.
Ignoring the concept of pay to win, like Overwatch and Destiny, all their loot boxes and randomized stuff you can get in the game, everything is cosmetic. It has nothing to do with your stats.
That's a very good point.
But that's the thing is, especially when it comes to games like Overwatch, where skins are a huge part of the game and sort of like kind of identify, like, you know, being able to be an individual within that game. Everything you get in that is randomized, and especially like when it comes to the event style crates, like I remember a lot of people very upset when the Summer Games came out, because some people thought that event wasn't going to come around for another 4 years. That means if you hadn't got that item that you wanted, yeah, you would possibly, and even though it didn't turn out to be true, it was only a year wait, they're doing every summer, people were terrified, and people were spending a lot of money after they'd achieved all their daily objectives and everything they could. They're still spending money in an attempt to get their favorite skin that they'd seen, whether that was Genji or it was McCree, and a lot of people were just freaking out, and that's definitely where this gambling issue
I'd
comes
love
in.
to hear your take on this, Dylan, coming from a development background, in general. Just a view of this whole Battlefront 2 microtransaction kerfuffle.
Yeah, well, I've actually been in a little bit of a hole, seeing I've just been working on Elden, but it's been obviously a pretty big topic, so I've had a bit of insight to it, just seeing who hasn't at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like if you look at games like Clash Royale, they do like a very similar thing. Like, well, they basically do exactly the same thing, because it basically seems like they're taking their model where you have cards and you can grind them up through crafting. But the difference between this game and that game is that one of them's free and one of them is around $100 without any of like the transactions. I think the biggest like issue is the gambling issue. It definitely like first came up when Overwatch was doing their events, and they're still doing that, but luckily you get the chance to get them each year, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the biggest issue is it gambling, and how does it affect other games, such as like Magic, like the card gathering, Magic the Gathering, the card game, because that's a form of gambling. But do we want this to affect those sorts of games? Like Hearthstone is also a game that does it. So I don't know. It has a lot of repercussions, and it definitely is a form of gambling, but it's a very big topic.
It was definitely something that me and Sarah were talking about before the show, is that it's becoming almost the norm. Like for me, microtransactions was only something when I was seeing when iPhone and iPad games and Samsung tablet games were becoming really, really popular. Those games were free, but then you could, if you wanted to, do in-game transactions, and it wasn't something you really see in the real world. On major releases, but now it's becoming more and more common. Like to me, it sort of makes sense. Games like Overwatch, strong multiplayer online presence. And it's definitely something.
And again, that's only a cosmetic.
Yeah, it doesn't
exactly.
affect.
It's cosmetic.
Yeah,
definitely.
bang on.
But
Just quickly though, sorry, going back, Mitch has just sent me an article. Actually, it turns out that the Victoria Gambling Commission does believe that loot boxes are gambling, I think, but the Queensland one doesn't. They
This is
actually
what I
say,
saw, yeah.
where's the quote here? However, I can confirm that video gaming which provides loot boxes would not fall within the meaning of a gaming machine as defined under the Gaming Machine Act. So basically, I haven't read the full article, but it sounds like, you know, maybe it's a bit of a grey area, and that's even more scary to me, because that means, you know, it's like, you know, if this is technically not gambling in some areas but is in some places, how do we regulate that? How do we define that? How do we stop this from getting out of hand?
Within the same country as well. We're already confused state to state.
I mean, we've always been a bit confused when it comes to more adult themes in games and in producing games in general, or allowing them into the country. We're starting to get on top of that with the R rating and whatnot. But even still, I think that just means this is a much more important issue that we should be looking at from that critical angle, as well as all the others, of course.
And unfortunately with games, and I'm not gaming much with any other content, but just because it's got an AR-18 label on it does not mean that kids are not playing it.
Absolutely.
And
which
if you
is
have
awful.
such a prominent part of the game being microtransactions and paying to win, they're going to do that because kids like to win and they do it well. But this definitely hasn't had no backlash, if that makes sense. In the UK, first week physical sales were down 61% to the 2015 reboot of Battlefront, which doesn't paint the rosiest of pictures. And yeah, as we were saying again off air, EA has also shut down Visceral Games, who were working on a new Star Wars release, which looked awesome.
Fortunately, it's still alive. The project is alive, but they're trying to swap companies.
Well, they're not just swapping companies. The EA, I think the problem with EA, and especially giving them the whole franchise of Star Wars, is that they're going to do what they do best, which is kind of making money, to be fair.
It seems
and
like,
they're a company that's great, but
unfortunately.
this is why they're so hated as a development company. And you know, and that new Star Wars game looked awesome, and I really would have liked to have played it as it was going to be, not this new pay-for-win format that they seem to pushing all of the games into.
It seems like it's a bit of an unfortunate trend that the new step forward that companies feel the best way to get money is the Destiny model, where it's constant expansion releases, it's, you know, paid money packs, which are either cosmetics or some form of gambling to get whatever. It's like that's the next step forward, is these massive online multiplayer games, rather than, you know, going back to some really positive, strong, really well-written, story-driven linear things like what that currently in limbo, you know, Star Wars game is going to be. And a lot of people are upset about that as well, because there seems to be a bit of an argument going on, I've seen recently, between we want more multiplayer, no, we want more story driven. And I don't think anyone really knows what the best
make everyone
option
happy
is.
all the time.
Exactly.
I think a really important thing to acknowledge is that what kind of game we're looking at. So, for example, Destiny, it is an MMO. It is borrowing from the PC model games, World of Warcraft, blah blah blah, and it is moving onto the PS4, and that makes sense. And I really really appreciate it. I love getting on there every week, playing with my friends, and doing the exact same thing every week, which sounds a little insane, but I personally really like it. But it doesn't make sense when it comes to games like Battlefront, which is it's a traditional console multiplayer. And Counter-Strike. Like Counter-Strike doesn't have that sort of thing. But then it's also moving into single-player games like Need for Speed, which we were talking about before today as car lovers.
Is that another EA title?
Bloody
This is a brand new EA title.
EA again.
Yep. And one of the biggest reasons people were so upset about their newest game is because one of the best things about the 2015 Need for Speed, which originally flopped but somehow still has an incredibly strong community, was its ability to build and modify your cars, and like down to every aspect of it. That has been completely taken away in the newest Need for Speed, and instead has been replaced by a card system.
Classic EA.
So it means if you want specific tires, you're going to have to be lucky enough to get it, and it doesn't work in a single player thing. Like this thing, if we're getting a new Star Wars single player experience, it doesn't need a loot crate. If it has a multiplayer component, even then, it's not necessary for the single player for literally the genre. It has to be appropriate and can't be just horseshoed into everything.
On a general level, Dylan, how do you feel about the whole just microtransactions in gaming in general, and the way that we seem to be moving in that sort of direction? Is it something that you would ever consider putting into one of your games? Probably not Elder, but something else possibly. Oh, Elden, sorry, but maybe something else.
Well, it's a difficult topic because it's not something we've really looked at ONERAT. The first game I ever made had ads implemented into it. And you could watch ads basically to allow you to revive, because it was just like a little mobile game.
Yeah, but optional, no?
Yeah, it was optional.
Yeah, fantastic.
But that kind of was the start of all of this stuff coming into all of the gaming. But yeah, I don't know. It's a difficult issue because on one end, studios need to be able to make money, and it's better to make a product than a living product than a one-time just you put it out there, people play it, and it's dead kind of product. And I think that's what a lot of these studios are looking at, is trying to make a product that lives. And I think that's a big thing that EA were doing, is they were trying to think that they would have more of an ecosystem like Overwatch, where people have been playing that game for how long is it now? 2 years nearly?
2 years.
I'm still loving it as much as I was the first time I played it.
So I think they thought people would be going into it with that kind of mentality, and have balanced everything for that. So I don't think it's a big issue overall we're having microtransactions in games, but it needs to be suitable. So they've made a game which is balanced around fun, and it's I don't know, it's difficult.
Yeah, it is difficult, and we will not be sorting it out today. On that, let's move to our next topic.
Mitch, what's Discord?
Discord is an online chat service that most gamers use. Incidentally, you can also use it to talk to us at pixelciv.com.au/Discord.
Yeah, you can talk about episodes, you can talk about upcoming topics, you can probably even coerce Mitch into playing a game with you online.
That's not going to happen.
That is going to happen. You're doing it. I'm saying that's happening. Sorry.
Yeah, well...
Join Discord.
You should grow your beard back.
pixelciv.com.au/Discord.
Oh, you guys... So Dylan J. Walker is the creative director and developer at ONERAT Games, and tonight he is here to talk to us about their latest project, Elden, Path of the Forgotten. Thank you for joining us, Dylan.
Yeah, thanks.
Not a problem. For the people playing at home that aren't familiar with the game, what's Elden all about?
So yeah, it's Elden, Path of the Forgotten, as you mentioned. It's a medieval cosmic horror game. It's kind of an RPG, kind of an action adventure game. The whole game is basically based around non-traditional storytelling, so more based around environmental storytelling. We want it to be like you're reading a book in a language you don't understand, but every other page has a picture. And besides that, we're focusing on more of a less hack and slash style of combat and more reactive. So you want to manage your stamina, be in the right position, and try to go for parries instead of just going in and hitting. But yeah, basically the game's driven around lore and combat.
Literally just described my dream game in a nutshell. I'm a ridiculous Bloodborne fan and a huge H.P. Lovecraft fan. So I've just got to ask straight away, on your website, is that Cthulhu chilling on the front page? Because this will determine.
That is a Cthulhu-like creature, yes.
Oh, cool. All right, I'm done. All right.
Cthulhu-like is my new
Cthulhu,
favorite
but-
genre, by the way.
Cthulhu-like is your new favorite genre.
It sounds like we'll definitely have to get a hold of this one for a Let's
Definitely.
Play for
I will-
Nick.
Oh yeah, no one else can join me. I'm just gonna sit there in like a really dark corner, blanket wrapped around me, and I'm ready to go.
So yeah, with a Cthulhu-like character like that, and drawing from lots of different styles, did you draw inspiration from other works in particular?
Yeah, so strangely, well, not really strangely, but as you just mentioned, Bloodborne is a really big inspiration because I've always been a big fan of the Dark Souls games. I got like Dark Souls 1 in like 2011, back in the day when I lived like by myself in a rural town in the middle of nowhere and I had no internet. So I really didn't like that game when I first got it because I had no internet and I just went into it and it was a hell of a ride. But after like 40 hours of playing it by myself without the internet, I really fell in love with it. And now it's kind of shaped a lot of the games I've made since. But then, yeah, once they released Bloodborne, that like really, I don't know, there was something about the theming that I really liked. Also things like Star Trek, which is a little bit of a weird one, but they also kind of go into that like malevolent creature kind of cosmic horror kind of theming a lot. But yeah, a lot of it is just 80s sci-fi.
Which is pretty top of the pops at the moment in their vein of Stranger Things and all stuff. 80s is
Yeah, we're
coming
actually
back
pretty
hard.
lucky with that. We're pretty lucky with that because we actually started the game before Stranger Things and all that came out. We started the game in like 2015, so
Yeah, wow.
we're kind of good with our timing.
Well, so yeah, production's been going for a couple of years then, and you mentioned other games. How long have you been working in the industry?
Not that long actually. So this is our first major project.
Yeah.
It's our first game is actually ONERAT, but beforehand I've made just like some small titles by myself. So they're just little like games. There's a game on Android, and then there's a few itch games basically. But yeah, this is our first game for Steam and consoles.
Yeah.
Considering, like, bouncing off that, you know, it's your first major game. How big or expansive or long are you kind of intending the game to kind of be? Like, do you have like a rough estimate of how many hours someone might averagely put in? I mean, it's kind of hard to say with a game of this nature. People, depending on who you are, you might play it differently. It might take you longer or shorter. Like, just how big are you trying to make this as a major title for a Steam release?
Yeah, so our whole thing is that we want to have a lot of varying regions, but we don't want to have them too vast so that we can concentrate on having like actual content inside of them, seeing we're only a two-man team.
Oh, wow.
So it really depends on your play style. Some people would be able to probably run through the entire game in under an hour. And if you wanted to get everything out of the game, you'd probably be there for like 6 to 8 hours. But it's a pretty small game because we're like kind of aiming for people a little bit older who don't have enough time to play games all the time and want a nice, concise little package.
You're doing the Lord's work there. Oh my goodness.
Now, we briefly had a chat to you last year at PAX AUS in 2016. What has changed between that appearance and your appearance at this year's PAX AUS?
Quite a lot, actually. So we're funded at both PAXs. Or actually, no. Since then, we have actually got our funding. We knew we had funding last year at PAX, but we weren't able to announce it yet publicly. So we've gone full-time since then, which has
Awesome.
made a lot of changes to the game because before that, we've actually started as a student project. And then after uni, we just were doing it in our free time. So yeah, we've been able to be on full-time for almost a year now. It's actually a different team now. So back then, it was mainly me and Peter. And Peter was doing a lot of the art, and I was doing a lot of the design. We also had Lewis on the project then, but we still have Lewis on the project now, but he has a lot more of a hand in everything now. So Lewis does basically all the programming, and I do all the art and design. Lewis also does the audio.
Very nice.
But yeah, so basically full-time and the team changed.
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff.
So, how important is something like PAX to the indie game community? I did notice quite a few games were returning this year.
Yeah, well, it depends on what you want to get out of it. The best thing that we get out of it is mainly playtesting, because it is a big audience, but it's not really a big enough audience to affect your market. But it is a really good opportunity to get the general public in, have them play your game, see them play it in just a normal condition or semi-normal condition, and just get their feedback. Yeah, I think that's the main thing, is just getting feedback.
Loving the 80s throwback stuff, loving the art style. How did you settle on the style of Elden?
So my background is in art. Ever since I was a kid, I've always been interested in art because, like, my mum is a chainsaw artist.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and her mum is like a painter and all that kind of stuff. So like art is always run in my family. I've drawn since like a young age. So basically, it was just what I wanted to see. So like I really like pixel art, but a lot of pixel art these days, because it's like so everyone's doing it. Everyone's trying to do it better and better and better, but they're all adding more and more detail to try and do that. Well, a lot of the cases. But then you have games like Sword and Sorcery, where instead they're breaking it down to like 3 shades per object, and they're going for a real nice block and real nice contrast on everything. So that was our main inspiration, was basically like Sword and Sorcery and those kind of games, and trying to go for more of a contrasty look.
So you did say you've changed your team. How did you meet your original team, and also I guess your new one? Double question.
All of us, actually, like old team and new team, all met through uni.
Okay, so and you said that it started off as a uni project. So I'm assuming you had to kick some people out to bring some people in.
Well,
or did you
not
just grow?
necessarily kick some people out, but back in the uni days, we had to work in teams at uni, and you didn't really get to choose who was on your team. So we had some people put onto the project who didn't want to stay on the project long term, but were happy to help out at the start. So we did have 2 other people on originally, which was Chavez, who was doing a little bit of level design stuff, but that's when the game had a completely different design, basically. And another guy called Sam, and he was more just like someone to bounce ideas off.
How did it start off as a uni project? Like, so when you were doing it for university, how expansive was the game then, and how much has it shifted since you've decided to take it much, much further?
We went from being like an 1/8 of a region to having 3 regions, and we're working on a 4th one now. So the game's a lot bigger now, and we're a lot more fast, like just vast. Beforehand, it was only 1 region, and it all happened inside of the area we've shown at PAX.
So how do you actually tie your? Because you said you wanted to have extensive lore and definitely something for people to read into. How are you tying that into the game? Are you going to have separate documents? Do you find items in game? Is it told through the world itself from like observation? And how did
yeah, it's mainly. Sorry, what was that?
Oh no, I was going to say. And how did you design that? How did you go about implementing that? Because that's something that's always been very fascinating to me when it comes to games of this nature.
Well, yeah, that's definitely been the hardest issue overall. It's all basically environmental storytelling, so it's told through the world. But you also find some pages throughout the world, but they're not written in any language that anyone would ever understand. So, yeah, but they do have a lot of imagery in them. So basically, the story's told through seeing things in the world, seeing events occur in front of you, and trying to link them to those documents. But yeah, basically, I'm not a really big fan of inventories. So there are items and stuff, but they don't really give you. It's not like Dark Souls where the items give you most of the lore, and you just go into the inventory and read it. I'm not a really big fan of that because I feel like the inventory takes you away from the actual game. Like Dark Souls got away from that by just putting it on top of the game, so you have to be in the inventory in the game at once, but that's not ideal. So instead we're just going for no inventory or no menus.
So how far completed do you feel the game is?
So like I said, we have like 3 of the 4 regions in at the moment, and we actually need to have like the entire like rough version of the game completed in just under 4 weeks. So
wow.
We don't actually have very long to finish the game. Yeah.
So there is an official release date pending?
So release will be like Q1 of next year. We're looking around February. That's when it will most likely be, but maybe March. But yeah, we're looking at February. It all depends on the market.
Is there, if people want to check out your game, is there much to find online at this stage?
Yeah, so you can go to elden.com.au, which is the main site for the game, and we have like a press kit, and which like just gives you, it's the best place for public game press because it gives you all the information, gives you all the images. It's just a nice little spot. And then we also have our Discord server, which is like discordapp.com/invite/ONERAT games.
Fantastic.
Or you can just write like ONERAT games and it will come up in Google, I'm pretty sure, the Discord.
I don't know. I think we'll definitely have to get a hold of a copy for Nick at least.
Oh my god, please! I was gonna.
No, I want one too, man. Don't count me out here.
Okay. Well, I was going to say, but I had to stop myself. My birthday's in February, so if you could get it out for February, I'd be really happy. Like, really happy.
We'll try.
Well,
Thank you,
we'd
man.
love to do a let's play of it. I'm sure Nick would be jumping at that opportunity.
So stoked.
But yeah, as I said, if you want to go and check out more of Elden or ONERAT and their first official game franchise, I'm sure go and check them out. And what's the plan post launch? Will you be implementing more, or will it be done? Is it done and dusted come Q1 of 2018?
Well, so we're doing a staggered release. So
Okay.
that Q1 is for Steam.
Yep.
And then we'll be working on getting it ported over to whatever consoles we decide to release on. And we're also currently working on some prototypes for some new ideas. So we got a lot going on at the moment.
A lot going on. Unfortunately, we have come to that time of the show where we end it. Dylan, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We hope you've enjoyed the show. And as usual, we'll be putting links up on our website for everything we've talked about today at www.pixelsift.com.au. Nick.
You can also find more about us on facebook.com/pixelsift, twitter.com/pixelsift, twitch.tv/pixelsift, and youtube.com/pixelsiftau.
It's a hard one, isn't it?
I know. And if you want to ask us some questions, suggest some topics, or play some games, you can chat to us on pixelsift.com.au/Discord. Mitch and Scott can always be found on Overwatch over there.
Yeah, I know.
That's a little bit terrifying and not quite as professional as you'd imagine online, but that's okay. They're good fun.
Unashamedly on Overwatch all the time. Sarah, if people want to listen to other episodes, where should they go?
You can visit our website to find all of our stuff, including Let's Plays and previous episodes. Subscribe as a podcast either on iTunes, Pocket Cast, or using the RSS link on our page. And if you're listening to us exclusively on one of these platforms, I just want to remind you that we go live every fortnight, and our next episode will be out on the 7th of December.
That is it. But if you cannot wait till then, which I can understand, who could get enough of us? We'll be at Perth Games Fest this Saturday at 11 a.m. at the Perth Town Hall on the main stage, where we'll be talking to some Western Australian game devs about showing off their first games. Thank you once again for joining us on Pixel Sift, and big thanks to Murdoch School of Arts for supporting the show. That is all.
Bye.
Till next time.
Goodbye.
See ya.
Bye.